Oh gosh, that's like backstabbing myself. That's a tough one. That's a really tough one. I expect you all to agree with me. You know what I was worried about this interview? That I was gonna be forgetting English words. I was just really annoyed. Like really annoyed me that so many people were trying to tell me who I was.
Yeah.
And when I was trying to figure out who I was.
If you could be locked in a dark black cell with one other Polish person, who would that person be?
Cześć Kasiulski. W dzisiejszym odcinku tak jak pewnie się domyśliliście po tytule, chciałam poruszyć temat, ale tym razem w innej odsłonie. Jak sądzicie, jak to nam pójdzie? Zaczynamy.
Kasia Mecinski, thank you very much for coming into our new and very beautiful studio. Do you feel honoured and blessed to be
Yeah, it's great. I love the way my voice is not bouncing.
It's good, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially from the last time. So where is the heart of Poland, if you had to define it?
That is a good start. You did say you were going to start with some good questions. I think it's in the people. It's definitely not a place. It's definitely in the people.
Good answer. Mm-hmm. Where's your personal heart of Poland?
I think I carry it around with myself. I think when I'm abroad, for a lot of people, I'm more Polish than I am American. So I think it's part of me. So.
When I first met you, I thought to myself, because you know, when you know of someone as a YouTuber, you don't automatically. YouTube is not. I think it's a pejorative term in a lot of countries. Mm-hmm. I thought to myself, you're a clever cookie.
Thank you.
Would you accept that compliment?
I'll take it.
Do you think you find it easier to accept compliments than the average Polish person?
Yes. Yes, I do. And I think I had a really hard time accepting compliments, but YouTube forces you to accept compliments. Especially when you do meetups and you meet people who watch you and they have so many nice things to say. You can't keep saying, no. You have to just at some point be like, thanks for that. And that's really hard to learn, I think, especially for women.
Yes, big time. We already talked a little bit about that. I'm very tempted to start talking about that subject, but perhaps we'll cover it later on. Kasia, I've got some quick-fire questions for you, which are either ors, okay? You can choose one of two options.
Okay.
And you can explain why afterwards, but you only at the first you can pick one of the two options. Number one, New York hot dog versus Polska Kielbasa.
That's an interesting combo. Why isn't Chicago-style hot dog in there?
Well, I read or heard that you wanted to move to New York, so I decided to give you like your imaginary...
Okay. Polska Kielbasa in that sense. However, if Chicago-style hot dog was on there, I'd go with Chicago-style hot dog.
Damn. All right. Well, that can be for our next interview. All right. Hopefully this will be a hard one for you. Number two, Japanese sushi versus Polish pierogi, which is basically the sushi.
God, that's a tough one. That's a really tough one. And I have to choose one.
Yes.
I can't explain which one I'd choose.
You can explain afterwards why you chose it.
Polish pierogi.
Bold. Mm-hmm. Really?
Yeah, it's homey. It's homey. However, okay, so if I wanted to, if it's cold, if I want to feel like at home, if I want a hearty meal, I would go definitely pierogi. If I want like interesting flavors that are an experience, I would go with sushi.
Do you guys celebrate Tłusty Czwartek in Chicago?
Yeah, we do.
How many is your record?
I have no idea, but it's a big one. We all of the restaurants, all the shops. You order a few days before, go and pick it up. My mom always gets the big box of them. I don't think I've eaten more than 10 ever. I'd say I'm probably around 5-6 for my max.
That is quite impressive. Well, I was telling you a donut anecdote before this film, but we won't mention that. Okay, Polish wedding versus American
Polish wedding. I don't know. Whatever you were going to put in there, Polish wedding.
There's something about them that just makes them exceptional. Can you remember any of your Polish weddings?
Yes, I've been to... the Polish weddings in America are also like Polish weddings. We kind of mix... we adjust it to the country, but they last, until 6 in the morning, 7 in the morning. You have to get out of the hall at some point. And then people will go to like the person's house the next day. So there's like some form of poprawiny. It's not as huge, the poprawiny are never as huge as here, but they'll last 2 days. The first time I was at an American wedding, I was like, no Polish person was getting married. I was 22 and we finished at midnight and I was like, what is this? And they're like, we're all going to go to a bar now. I'm like, but I What? When's the games? When's the like rest of the real dancing? That was like, intro dancing, not the real stuff. But in Poland, I've been to a lot of weddings, na wsi, in the countryside, because my parents are from the countryside, and those will, they last 2-3 days. A lot of times they're in, I don't know what these buildings are called. They're like the kind of town halls.
Stodoła sort of kind of thing?
No, not stodoła, but like a local townhouse or like
Yeah.
a firehouse or something. I remember when I was 11, there was the wedding, but like 2 days before a calf was born. So my sisters and I kept running back to the farm and checking in on the calf, and it was great. And we went to sleep at some normal hour, like 5 in the morning. My dad kept going with some of his friends because it was on my dad's side of the family, and they, I guess, kept singing, because when we woke up at like 11 in the morning, they made us breakfast and they all sounded like croaking frogs, and we were scared. We were like, the children were just like, oh, okay, I'll take the eggs, don't talk to me or touch to me, because they sounded so creepy. They were just like, yeah, because they were just singing all night. And I love the just it's fully celebrating, there's no like stopping, there's no breaks there. I don't think there's quite a wedding like a Polish wedding. And living in Japan, you really, really appreciate Polish weddings. Japanese weddings are just a set of formalities.
Ah.
Yeah, so I feel like that's the difference. And in a Polish one, you can just let go of those.
I feel a CTA coming on here, guys. Call to action. If you agree with Kasia about Polish weddings, that there ain't no party like a Polish party, then you can write in the comments and let us know below. Right,
I expect you all to agree with me.
I think that will be one of your least controversial opinions today. Number 4, tofu or YouTube? Have to pick one of the two.
For work?
Yeah, you can either pick your channel or tofu media.
Oh gosh, that's like backstabbing myself.
Yes, I'm so sorry I put you in this position.
Okay, YouTube.
YouTube?
Yeah,
Oh.
I never, it's interesting, I surprised myself saying that, because I never think of myself as a YouTuber, and I never went into it intentionally. It all just kind of happened, but I love the interaction with people. I love the stuff I get to learn from people on Instagram too. It's so cool. It's so cool. I can do whatever, within certain limits, I can learn whatever I want and transfer that to somehow monetize it to some extent. So
you're kind of a big deal on YouTube. I mean, 250,000 subs is not small on the Polish scene. Do you sometimes feel like it could almost get to your head, the comments you get, the lovely things? How do you manage the sheer level of adoration which just comes through because there's so many thousands of comments? Do you even read them anymore? I
read, I think, almost all of them. I even
Wow.
read my requests on Instagram, and there's really, depending on what I post, there's a lot of requests. I don't think a lot of the comments are about me anymore. They're about the content, usually. The comments, people don't take too much time to adore me. It's weird to say in the context of yourself, but I was just throwing back the word adoration. When I change something, that's when I'll get a lot of new comments, like when my glasses will change or my hair will change, and then they pass. So I feel like there's not too much of that. The things that'll come more often is negative comments when someone new is on the channel. Whenever there's a negative one, I'm like, oh, you're a new person. And I, from the beginning, just didn't care. There's certain things that'll get to me, but over the span of the last, I think it's been 4 years that I've in some way been on YouTube, there's only been 2 topics, and one of them was my Polishness, I think, my Polishness or Americanness or my identity, really a hot topic for people. And I was just really annoyed. Really annoyed me that so many people were trying to tell me who I was.
Yeah.
And when I was trying to figure out who I was, that's the only one that really comes to mind that I remember somehow got to me more than I would have liked it to.
Identity is something you talk about a lot. It's a fascinating subject. We were talking about it for a while, but we'll come back to that shortly because I'm very interested in your project you're doing to help people understand how women are perceived and talked about on the internet. Chicago versus Warsaw.
Warsaw. That was
the
also
right
a tough
answer.
one. I'll explain that one too. I would much rather live in Warsaw, although Chicago kind of seems happier. Like it seems like the sun shines differently or something. But there's not the same type. American cities are just not great for like living in. You work in the center, you live in a suburb, and I'm not a fan of that. So Warsaw is such a comfortable city.
I'm going to carry on. I'm making up fake either or questions here. Poland versus Japan?
Poland.
That was the right answer. If this was heart of Japan, we might have got a different answer. What's the number one question that you're tired of answering in interviews? And please answer it straight after.
There are so many, but like nothing's coming to mind. Why the name of your channel? I don't get that one too much. No, I don't even hate that one.
50 Napul, by the way.
Yeah, I don't mind that one though. Yeah, I don't know.
You know the one where they go, how is it you, but I'm imagining it must be something about America, so it must be an America-related question you get every time you do an interview. There's always one question that every interviewer always asks, and I like that question, but I also dislike it at the same time.
I think I just won't be able to think of it right now because I'm trying too hard.
I've got to call a CTA for the future version of Kasia to come back to this episode and write the answer to that question underneath. There you go. That's flipping the lid around and giving you a CTA. What's the one thing about your life that people don't understand?
It's definitely about the amount of privilege they assume I have. They assumed I grew up in this like wealthy, in the States, so it must have been a wealthy, easy life. And that this goes in hand with the amount of cost in America to live a normal life, like education and stuff. People don't see that I grew up in an immigrant family. You don't grow up, they were economic immigrants, so they moved and they got whatever jobs they could, and they had kids, and we worked with them because they didn't speak the best English. And my childhood was a lot of work, which is something that I really, really like. But I think that's the thing that most people don't understand. They assume that I just had more money because I'm from America. And going further to the adult life is that like American adult life costs so much money. If you want to start a normal life, you need like $100,000 education, something $1,000 car to get to work. And I think this is where Poland is like a lot better country than America. So.
That was an interesting answer. Do you think, no, I'll ask you from a different perspective. If you could go back now and talk to 6-year-old Kasia Mecinski, what would you say to her?
You have no idea how your life is going to turn out. Yeah, the work that you're going to do doesn't exist right now. So.
Kind of crazy, isn't it, when you think about it?
Yeah. You know what? I remember when people ask, what did you want to do when you were a kid? It was like between astronaut and cash register person, because I liked the way the buttons worked. And at no point did I think make videos about the topics I like on this platform on the internet. That the internet started to appear in school and stuff then, but would have never guessed.
Nice, I like that. If you were Queen of Poland, or at least somewhere up there, a Countess or something, you could change one thing about the country, what would it be?
I would require some form of maintenance of the exterior of buildings. It really bothers me that the gray isn't repainted or washed. I think the city could be a lot brighter if they maintained the facades more. Of basically every city in Europe, in Poland, I mean.
If you could be locked in a dark black cell, not unlike the one we're in, but a lot smaller, with one other Polish person, living or deceased, who would that person be?
How long are we locked for?
It's probably going to be quite a long sentence for crimes against YouTube or something equivalent. You have to be locked in with this person, so it's going to take quite a long time. You have a lot of time to talk.
Okay, because of the current events in America, I'll go with Lech Wałęsa. I want to know, how did the protests look then versus how do the protests look in America right now?
Interesting. So let's talk about your family a bit. They came over, and what I think I got from my interview with Dave Zamedyki, by the way, you guys are more than welcome to watch that. It was a really good interview. It was just how Polish these families still stayed. Was that the same for you guys? Because I think it was a bit different in the UK. There wasn't that community and that attachment to the ojczyzna, if that was the word that was used.
When I talk to my friends here in Poland, a lot of them always joke that there are a lot of things about me that are more Polish. I danced Polish folk, when I was a child. I was in a Polish choir. I took part in all of the Jasełka for like 12, 13 years. We had a Polish pilgrimage. That's kind of the equivalent of the one to Częstochowa, from a church in Chicago to a church in Indiana, and it was a 2-day, 50-kilometer pilgrimage that thousands of Polish people in Chicago took part in. There's a huge incentive among my particular community to maintain their idea of Polishness and to teach them to their children. And I think a lot of it comes out of it being a different migration than to England. I think a lot of the people that were coming in the most recent years assume they're going to go back to Poland, and Poland's close. It's the same continent. You can get there in a few hours. In the States, we were limited to going to Poland to visit our family every 2 years. And there was this certain pride in maintaining this Polishness and coming back and hearing from your family that, oh, they speak Polish so well and they're so Polish and stuff. So there was the nacisk, the pressure to maintain this was really high. And my first job was in a Polish grocery store. I worked in a Polish bakery. I worked in the warehouse you know what I was worried about this interview? That I was going to be forgetting English words. That imported Polish food from Poland and exported it around the Polish stores in America. And yeah, there was so much Polishness in my life.
I find it fascinating. One of the things you've got is this malleable brain, because I think more than anyone else I know or have ever met, you can flip between the languages and do so very regularly. It's like a gramophone needle skipping from one tune to the other. If you were living in Poland, where would you be right now? Do you think you might have gone off in some other direction?
This is something that I've thought about a lot. And I think that if I were raised in Poland, I would have had a completely different life. I probably would have been living in a small town or in the countryside, and I wouldn't have had the same perspective on like a potentially global life as I did having lived in the States. So I think I would have been traveling just for travel for 2 weeks at a time or a month at a time without the idea of living abroad. I think
Would you like to lead a simpler life? Because you're pretty hectic, aren't you? You do a lot.
Yeah. I think it would have been very lovely in a different way, for sure. I consider it a lot like in perspective of my cousins, and I kind of think like, dang, I'd love to just not care about my phone, you know? I'd love to, I love spending time in the countryside. I love the quietness. I love the fact that I can read a book in a week. Like I haven't done that in a year, but I used to do it regularly, you know, so.
Kasia, I listened to your interview with Karol Paczorek, by the way, guys. You can watch our interview with Karol. It's really good. In which you said you didn't like the English accent. Now, I have to put you up on that, Kasia. I have to put you up on that. I can't let this slur against my nation go. Is it true?
It might have been too broad of a statement. There are ones that are much nicer than other ones. But definitely better than the Australian accent.
Have you worked on your American accent in Polish, or you don't care about?
I cannot do that. I just, for some reason, I can't do a really good Polish accent in English, and I can't do an American accent in Polish. It's like my brain has spent so many years deciphering both that I can't bring myself to do it for some reason. I try a lot. I'll, be in the bathtub and like, and I'm like, why do I sound Brazilian or something? Like it just never comes out as Polish. So.
Kasia, what project are you working on at the moment that's particularly interesting you, is your passion project?
So I'm working on a book, and the title is going to be Nie obraź się, ale, and it explores female relationships.
So don't get offended,
but. Yeah.
And there's so much in the but, isn't it? What would be your aim with this book? It's clearly by the title, it's about the offence that people receive.
Well, it started. I think it's changed. My idea of it has changed a few times, but basically, I think there's so many times when women talk about the pressure that we experience in life, and we refer to these stories and these things that happen to us. But now you can just take a screenshot of a conversation or a comment and be like, "This happens. This is regular. This happens all the time." And I made a very, very simple book for one event with just the comments, and it was really well received. So I decided to make a book that kind of explores the relationships further, because there's so many complex relationships women have that can have such a negative undertone without us considering why. Like, why do we put this pressure on each other? Why do we expect certain things from each other? Why is it that when we walk into a room, we're like aware of who the prettiest girl is? Like, why, So I've invited psychologists and historians and sociologists to write from various points of view about various relationships between women. I think one of the most interesting takes on it, not necessarily the most interesting, but I didn't expect this when I started it, was we have one girl who's, I can't remember if she's already graduated, but she's studying, I think she's still studying history. She's writing about female relationships and the jealousy that comes out and the complexity of these relationships in royal courts. And
really?
So the idea of like exploring it all the way, it always was there. So really looking at it from a lot of different perspectives.
Yeah, of course, very hierarchical organizations. Did you study? What you said?
I studied advertising.
Which has obviously helped you a little bit in your work. We haven't talked about the fact that you run Tofo Media. And how is the epidemic, which is ongoing, that's why we're so socially distant still, how has that affected business? And it's a Polish company, isn't it? It's a Polish registered company, Tofo Media.
I run Tofo Media. It's a video production company in Japan, and the virus was a huge surprise for us. I didn't know how, I completely expected it to destroy us, because a lot of our work is based on foreign clients who need some production work in Japan. We are a bridge for a lot of the companies that need to get something done. So we just thought, production is going to drop off completely. What are we going to do? And what ended up surprising me is that a lot of projects did get pulled, but a lot of new projects did come in because budgets had to get readjusted. Like, events aren't going to be happening in the same way for a while, so a lot of those budgets have been moved to video. And in a lot of ways, it's kind of exciting because it forces you to work in a completely different way. And in some ways, it's also better for me because it has... We, for example, had a shoot where the client was in Germany and Japan, and we had to not live stream, but stream it for the client with the client's input the whole time. And it was totally fine for me as the producer also to not be on set, So it's like made my life in some ways more, it gave me a lot of freedom in some ways.
That's a massive plus, actually, isn't it, going online? Kasia, everyone has a super skill, professionally and personally. What's your professional or, because they could be the same skill, super skill?
Professionally, I am very detail-oriented, and I can foresee a lot of things, which makes me good in production. I can foresee what will go wrong. So it works pretty well, especially in Japan. In Japan, when you work in production and you have foreign crews come, a lot of times you are like a cultural babysitter.
Yes.
So I foresee a lot of that. Like we walk into somewhere, I'm like, guys, before we get in the car, or before we get out of the car, what I'm gonna need you all to do is take off your shoes where the little the floor rises. You'll know as soon as you enter. Take off your shoes there, not on the platform. Take it off before. And so it's a lot of like imagining what can go wrong, what can offend people if the batteries will go out. So I appreciate that about myself, that I can see that.
And what's your personal super skill?
I think it's similar. It's similar, but it's creepier, because I can, like, when I would come back to Japan, for example, and I'd go back into my apartment, and I was living with my ex then, I'd like know what he ate the previous 4 days and who was over by just kind of what was around. And he's like, how did you know? I'm like, there's an egg drop over there. And so.
What's the personality trait or repeat behavior that you're working on in yourself? Is there anything you're trying to improve in yourself as a person?
The way I express myself. I'm
flabbergasted.
I don't like my ums. I don't like my likes. And I oftentimes will start saying something and then want to change the way I said it. So
that could well be the plasticity, the plastičnost. Yeah, jak to się mówi? Plastičnost of your multicultural Polish-American, American-Polish brain. Well, Kasia, we have to finish, I'm afraid, but I've loved coming with you on this journey. I'll just finish, though, with favourite Polish food. Can't say pierogi.
Anything with mushroom sauce.
Pleasingly vague. That's okay, I'll allow that. Favourite Polish place?
Like a city, or? I don't know if favorite's the right word, but I really love this little wioska called Zalipia. Have you been?
I have not been to Zalipia.
It's known as like the painted village, and they paint flowers on their houses, and they have little...
So in a way it's where Queen Kasia has gone to reign, because your queenly edict was to paint the houses.
Yes! Maybe, wow, you did find a good connection there.
By the way, I have a theory which everyone actually realises their childhood dream. It just doesn't, when you're a child you don't quite understand where it goes. We'll come back to that. Place in Poland that you should have been to but haven't yet.
Lublin.
Oh, well.
I
Kasia,
might have been there.
If you could get vlogging in Lublin, almost made that work soon. So, Kasia, thank you very much for joining us. You can give a final message to our viewers. Anything you'd like to get off your chest?
I'd like women to think about their relationships with women more and where certain reactions come from.
Awesome. Well, that was a lovely way to finish it. I did an interview earlier today with Alex Ritchie on the Heart of Poland programme, where she talked about the lessons that history can teach us about how we live today. And I think it's no accident, Kasia, that you've ended up with a message which is well worth thinking about. So thank you very much for joining us on Heart of Poland. You join this long and ever increasingly illustrious list of notable people. But I want to let you know that we have a lot more notable, illustrious, well-known people on the Heart of Poland programme. It is the premier English language programme about Poland, where we go on the impossible mission of finding the heart. And I think I would agree with Kasia, who said at the start, it's all about the people. So make sure you check out this episode, share it on any of the multiple platforms of social media. We do everything other than TikTok. One has one's limits. And make sure you check out the other fascinating interviews with other fascinating people in the fascinating country of Poland, wherever you find it on thefirstnews.com. So I'll see you again for another episode of Heart of Poland.